Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in your essay writing and presentation skills class. Today we are going to wrap up our semester, our course with our last lecture, that is lecture number 32, and I hope that you are going to be very excited about it because this is going to be the last lecture of the whole series of essay writing and presentation skills. Today I am going to briefly tell you that what we have studied in our complete course. We are in short going to summarize what we have done so far, and we are going to relate it to the practical life also, that how you can make use of these contents that we have studied in our whole course through the whole this course of time. We are going to review each and everything in detail, and this is how we are going to end up our semester. I hope this episode is going to be very exciting for you, since you know that you are gone, you are through with the tough times, and now you are done with whatever you had to learn during the semester. So to begin with, I'll just simply give you a course recap for whatever we have done in our lectures, starting from lecture number 1 till lecture number 31. We will thoroughly study. This lecture is going to be one handy for you, so that you can, if you are forgetting about any term or any terminology that we have used during our course, you can just click onto this last lecture, and you can see that how you can define one terminology that you are forgetting in your mind. So to begin with, let's quickly see that what we have, where we started, and where or this train of or where our journey started and where we are standing today. We discussed about the language skills, the 4 language skills that we have through which we communicate our points to our friends, to our family members, to the receivers of the information, whosoever is there. We talked about listening and reading as receptive skills, the skills which are receiving the information, which are in there once you are planning to receive any information that is there, and you want to, this is kind of an input. The information is coming in you, and you are receiving that information. Then we also discussed the speaking and writing as productive skills, in which you are producing the information. Now our main focus was writing and speaking, because we were working on enhancing your writing, essay writing skills, and we were also focusing on making you best speakers and best presenters. So our main focus was on making or on producing skills, these productive skills, the skills which actually help us produce our innermost information and our innermost desires, feelings and emotions to the next person. We thoroughly discussed that what is communication. So what is communication? Communication is the cycle through which a sender sends a message to the receiver, and receivers, he sends back the feedback to the sender, and this is how this communication goes on. So how do we communicate? Sometimes we communicate verbally, sometimes we communicate non-verbally, and sometimes we also communicate para-verbally. What is a skill? We also discussed that what is a skill. Skill is something that is there, that is a learned ability that you learn with the passage of time. We talked about different language skills that we have read in the previous slide also. We talked about different types of communication: aggressive, submissive and assertive communication, which are there, or which become the these capabilities of, or let's say these personality traits of some people. Then we also talked about the communication cycle. I will also make one for you, so that you can understand that what and you can also recall that what this communication cycle was. We also discussed barriers in the language communication, and we also discussed that how you can overcome these barriers, like cultural barriers, psychological barriers, physiological barriers, language barriers. Like for example, the language is also sometimes become one barrier. If you are talking to someone who does not understand your language, there is a kind of a vocabulary that is used in different languages. That is also one problem, while when language becomes one of the barrier in your communication process. Sometimes your accents, they are so different for other speakers that they cannot understand what you are talking about, and so on and so forth. We also talked about the psychological barriers. Sometimes you are not psychologically present in the situation. Sometimes you are so much preoccupied. Sometimes there are prejudices. Sometimes there are inferiority complexes and so on. Sometimes we also talked about the psychological barriers as well as we also talked about the physiological barriers. Now these physiological barriers have something to do with the physical environment. If there is a lot of if there is no electricity, if the room is so humid and dark, and if the room is so cold, in these kind of the situations, sometimes if there is so much distractions coming from outside, so in these kind of situations, sometimes you don't feel comfortable while talking to the next person. Sometimes your physical condition like headaches, you have cough, you have nausea, sometimes you are daydreaming, sometimes you are not alert, sometimes you are twitching with the material, and so on and so forth. So these kind of barriers have been discussed, and we also see that how you can overcome these barriers by focusing on a few things and avoiding the others. So this is how we discuss the communication thing. Now just to give you one recap of how communication cycle looks like. Basically, let me pick up the pointer so that I can guide you better again that how well we have discussed. Your communication basically starts with your sender here. The sender, the one who is encoding the message in his brain. Now this sender is sending the information to the receiver. He is sending message. This message is being sent to the through a proper channel to the receiver. Now this channel can be verbal or this channel can be non-verbal. Now these channels can be verbal as well as non-verbal. So let's write them down: verbal and non-verbal. Now through these verbal and non-verbal channels you send this information where you also can have noise, distractions, and there can also be other barriers that we have discussed. Now the receiver, he or she would try to decode the message in his or her brain, and then this decodation of the message will through that decoding the message, the receiver will reply back to the sender and will send back this feedback to the sender, and this cycle will get complete. So this is how we have discussed this communication cycle thoroughly during our course of during our whole course. In one of our lectures we discussed this writing skill in detail. We learned that what is a writing skill and how it is a productive skill. This is one important part of our communication, and this is one output skill, that is our productive skill. Good writing skills allow you to communicate your message with clarity and ease. So we thoroughly discussed the good writing messages, that how they provide your message with clarity and ease to your audiences. During our writing skills, we thoroughly discussed the formal and informal communication, in which we thoroughly differentiated between formal writing and informal writing. In other words, we tried to set forth in front of you the differences and similarities between formal and informal styles of writing, and we also try to see that what kind of writing style essay writing is. So to begin with, formal writing is somewhat complex, however informal writing is simple. There are short sentences in this informal writing, however the longer and the complex sentences can be there in the formal writing. Now there are contractions and abbreviations can be used roughly, like I am, like if I am using I am making use of these contractions: I am, I'll do, and stuff like that, CIRT, and these kind of abbreviations can be there while we are talking about the informal writing. However, formal writing is focused and it avoids these contractions. Instead it uses the full words. We are allowed to use colloquial language or slangs in the informal expression of communication. However, the formal communication has some objective and it is always written in the third person. Informal, during you call that piece of writing informal, which has got this emotion and empathy in it, so you can best help yourself write one informal and formal writing based on the differences that we have pointed out during our presentations. We also discussed some of the formal writing rules, that how what things you are supposed to stick to while you want to create one formal format, because essay writing is a formal writing and we have to discuss it. We had to discuss that in detail. The first thing that we learned was that do not use first or second person like I, my, we, us. Do not use contractions like this. If you want to write one good formal writing, do not use metaphors or figures of speech. Avoid saying that these essay will discuss or in my opinion, so your personal opinion is not there. Always avoid using a lot. It is kind of a vague word. Avoid redundancy and repetition. Be specific and do not be vague. Do not use words such as things or many examples. Always follow the ML style for your citations. Font style should be 12 point format times New Roman standard, 1H margin from every side once you are writing any formal writing essay. Edit every time. You must edit. Save your rough work, do not discard it. When writing about literature, always write in the present tense. So this is another rule. Essays should be submitted with one stapled in the top left corner and do not put them into the folders. So these are some rules that I have shared with you while we were planning on writing down one formal essay for others. Now we also discussed some of the stages of the writing process: pre-writing, writing and rewriting. Your pre-writing is your planning stage, which has got your brainstorming or unearthing ideas. So your brainstorming session involves a lot of techniques like mind mapping, clustering, and other techniques, unearthing ideas, questioning, keeping a journal, and so on and so forth. So these kind of pre-writing techniques can be used. For essay, we thoroughly discussed that how to develop one outline. Now you were supposed to write down your essay based on the outline that you were supposed to create. So we worked thoroughly in our one complete lecture focused on the pre-writing technique of outlining for your essay. Then during your writing, how we learned that how you make your drafts. Draft number 1, that is based on your outline. Then how do you edit it, and then how you revise it for checking out any errors, and if you are editing, then you look for the citations and labeling. Then you give it a finishing touches, in which this is your rewriting stage, where actually you are bringing it to the conclusion by checking on the grammar, punctuations and any other points that you have missed out. This is basically your proofreading stage, for which we have thoroughly discussed that what is the best idea for proofreading, that you should keep your writing aside for a while, and then you should go out maybe, or you can maybe take a nap, and then once you are going to come back and pick up your paper, you will be in a better condition to see that what you have written and what points you have missed, and if there are any corrections, would they be, and what else you can add in your essay writing. So this is how you can find the loopholes in your writing paper or written text. So these are some stages of the writing process that we have also discussed. You were to remember that writing is a process, and every written assignment is practice for the next one. So you cannot appear to be the perfect one in your very first writing. There are steps to follow. The way you start moving from poor to average, and from average to you move on to the expert. So this is your cycle that we are moving to. Maybe you stand here, and I want to make you this one. Writing takes time. Now remember that writing is a process and it takes a lot of time, and this is what we have been discussing throughout our semester. Go through every step of the process. So you must go through every step of the process, pre-writing, writing and rewriting. Focus on your ideas first. So whatsoever idea that you are presenting should be focused properly. Focus on grammar and spelling last. Get feedback from a peer, instructor or a tutor. So this is how you can make your written material look better. We started up with writing one paragraph, and then we moved on to writing larger text, different paragraphs that combine together to give you larger text. So first of all, we discussed that what is a paragraph. Now paragraph is a group of sentences that introduces, presents and develops one main idea about the topic. Your paragraph basically has three major parts. Topic sentence, you have got the beginning, and with your topic sentence which introduces or which announces the topic in front of the reader. You have got supporting details which are there in the middle. Maybe you have 3 or 4 sentences for them. Then you have the closing sentence, which is which basically demonstrates the ending of your paragraph. Then we discussed what is an essay. Essay is an organized collection of your thoughts on a particular topic, which consists of 3 major parts. The first one is your introduction, the second one is your main body, and the third one is your conclusion. Same goes with this is somewhat, the repetition of what we have read in our paragraph, that it carries one topic sentence, then it carries the supporting detail, and then it carries one conclusion or a closing sentence that ends up your paragraph clearly for your reader. Now we also learned about that what is an essay and where was the word being derived. So essay is a word derived from the Latin verb exire, which means to examine, test and drive out. So our main focus was on these three things once we planned out to write down an essay. Remember, for every essay type that we have discussed, we had made sure that you you follow one process, and I have shared with you one example each so that you can read them thoroughly, and then you can decide on that how you are supposed to write one essay related to the topic that I have introduced you. What could be the purpose of an essay being given in this definition? So you are supposed to examine first, then you are supposed to test it by examine first of all, try to question it, any subject or any material, try to question it and make your statement, your thesis, a statement on which you want to work on. Secondly, you should test it. In other words, it means that you are going to properly test it, and you are going to talk about the facts and evidences, you are going to prove it, and then you are going to drive out. It means that you are going to conclude, or you are going to bring it out, your essay, in front of the public. Now we also discussed that what makes a good essay. Your essay should be well written first of all. How it is being well written, it should be grammatical, there should be correct spellings and punctuations, there should be good sentence structure, the paraphrasing and the use of linking words and phrases should be there. It should be fully referenced with the Harvard system or MLA. So this is what we said, that how these are some essay writing rules that I have already discussed in the previous slide, that how you can write down one formal essay for your audiences. We thoroughly discussed 2 essay outline types. The first one was topic outline and the second one was sentence outline. While choosing the topic outline, the headings are given in the single words or brief phrases. So this is the best practice through which you can write good essays. In your sentence outline, you are supposed to express your ideas in the complete sentences for your audiences. There are some types of essays that we have discussed thoroughly during our course of time. We thoroughly talked about descriptive essays, definition essays, compare and contrast essays, narrative essays, cause and effect essays, argumentative essays, critical essay, evaluation essay, analysis essay, reflective essay, expository essay, literature essay and personal essay. Remember, your exam will carry any one of the essay type, so don't try to miss out anything that I have told you already, and I am going to tell you for the last time in today's lecture, so that you are not going to forget that how you are going to write down one essay in your exam. And I have also shared with you that how to overcome this anxiety of the essay writing exam, so better stick to all the points that I have shared with you in the previous lectures. The first type of essay that we discussed was the descriptive essay. Now, the descriptive essay provides details about how something looks, feels, tastes, smells, makes one feel or sound. So it basically defines, or it basically describes something. It also describes what something is and how something happens. These essays generally use a lot of sensory details, because you are trying to describe something. Maybe you are trying to describe any painting, maybe you are trying to describe any place, maybe you are trying to describe the personality of any person. The essay could be a list-like description that provides point-to-point details. So the examples that we have discussed in our descriptive essay are a tree in my backyard and a visit to the children's ward of the hospital. So these are some examples that we have discussed in our descriptive essay, and I hope that you have learned how to write one descriptive essay. The second type of essay that we have discussed was the definition essay. In definition essay, you explain the meaning of a certain term by giving a detailed description of it. So you basically try to define something on your own. Now, definition essay, if you remember, I told you thoroughly that you are not supposed to take definitions of someone else, or you are not supposed to copy definitions from dictionaries or encyclopedia. You can take help from dictionaries and encyclopedias, but you are supposed to write down definitions on your own that should carry your personal thoughts, and your you should try to create one definition for any idea that you are selecting for your definition essay. You support your definition with clear examples and facts. So your definition essay should, any definition that you are making down should have these clear examples and facts. Such explanations are needed in terms of it is special, abstract, disputed, or does not have a common meaning. So you can explain these kind of things in your definition essay. For instance, individuals can interpret the definition of the words freedom or abuse quite differently. So you are to come up with your own definition of any abstract term, any concept, anything that you want to explain in front of your audiences or your reader. Talking about the third type, that is critical essay, that we have discussed. A critical essay is a piece of academic writing which is in the form of a classic composition which has got one introduction, one full body, and summarizing the conclusion. Now, critical essay helps you to interpret and analyze the set of text. Now, if you are critically reviewing, or if you are writing one critical essay on any piece of literature, any piece of art, your criticism is an interpretation and analysis that is based on picking up the negative and the positive points of that piece of literature, that piece of music, or that piece of art on which you are critical, which you are actually critically evaluating. A critical essay must be written with an aim or purpose. It often proposes a sound argument. So any sound argument that you want to propose in your critical essay is one major type or one major thing that you are supposed to insert in your critical essay. A critical essay analyzes the strengths, weaknesses of any method or of someone else's work. So basically it has to talk about the positive and the negative. It tries to analyze the positive and negative points of any other piece of work. Now, critical essay can be written about any essay, any story, any book, any poem, any movie, or any other work of art on which you want to write your essay on. Like, for example, how Shakespeare presents the character Hamlet in his play Hamlet, and we have also discussed good examples of how you can pick up the strengths and weaknesses of any piece of literature, any piece of art, or any piece of music by writing down one good critical essay. The next type of essay that we have discussed was a narrative essay. The narrative essay basically tells you a story. It can also be called a short story, in other words. So once you are narrating something, basically you are narrating something from your life experiences. So whatever you are narrating, maybe you can inserting any dialogues, maybe you can bring the natural things in it. You can narrate how someone behaved and how someone looked like. So your narrative essay is somewhat conversational in tone once you talk about writing it. It tells about the personal experience, so it also carries the emotions and feelings of your own. For example, my brother and my fishing trip. So you are telling them a narration, a bothering trip to a grocery store, and my near-death experience to the beach. So these kind of examples that I've shown you, and we have also discussed some of the examples during the course of time, that how you can write one essay based on outlines, and how you can use some of the examples that I have shared with you during once you decide to write down one good essay. Now moving on to the next slide, the narrative essay is told from a particular point of view. It makes and supports a point. It is usually filled with the precise details. It uses vivid verbs and modifiers. It uses conflict and sequence, as does any story, and it may also use a dialogue. So dialogues, any conflict or sequences, vivid verbs and modifiers, precise details, supporting sentences, and basically it is narrating something, and it is written from the particular point of view. So this is what narrative essays looks like. We also discussed that how this type of essay is one informal type of essay, where you can also use dialogues and contractions and abbreviations, because this is one kind where you have this margin of writing down something on your own, because you want to present your personal point of view. A narrative essay is a type of essay writing that is built around a narration of a certain event or a situation. So now you get the definition of the narrative essay. Basically, it is concise form of a novel, of a narrative novel. So your narrative essay is somewhat one kind of the narrative novel. Its main objective is to tell a story so that it is both engaging and interesting for the reader. So once you try to write down one narrative essay, you are to bring your reader towards the topic that you are presenting, or you are writing down on the sheet of paper. The next essay type that we discussed during our course was compare and contrast essay, which helps to compare and contrast two different things, or maybe they talk about two different things, people, or different concepts or places. So basically it tries to pinpoint the similarities and differences between two things, people, concepts, and places. Your comparison usually discusses the similarities between two things. However, contrast discusses the differences, and its major focus is on the differences. For example, compare and contrast of let's say apple and oranges. So we will try to see the similarities and differences between these two fruits, and there is a list of examples that you can see, like two people like my brother and myself, then the likeness and differences between two places like New York City and Los Angeles, and the similarities and differences between two religions like Christianity and Islam. So your basic purpose is to bring in the differences and similarities, but not to give any personal opinion on them. Comparison discusses the similarities, which are the common properties between two things, places, things, or the objects that is the center of your attention to compare and contrast them. Then contrast usually discusses differences, which helps to point out the properties each have that other lacks. So it is basically trying to pick up the differences. However, your comparison helps you to find out the similarities. Be certain which action is being requested. Is it either or both? So try to make sure that while you are attempting your paper, and while you are trying to write down one compare and contrast essay being assigned by your teacher to write on, try to make sure that what action is required, either it's comparison or contrast or both, that you are supposed to concentrate while writing down one good comparison and contrast essay. Then we also talked about the argumentative essay type. Now argumentative essay is one that attempts to persuade the reader to writer's point of view. Now argumentative essays are also known as the persuasive essays, in which the writer tries to persuade the reader towards his or her point of view. Now your persuasion is positive. As I said, that these essays are also known as persuasive essays. So they try to persuade the attention of the reader towards the writer's point of view. The writer can either be serious or funny, so any mode or any tone or any style can be used for writing one argumentative essay, but the writer always tries to convince the reader of the validity of his or her opinion by providing the evidences, by providing the statistics, by providing the facts and figures, so that the reader is dragged towards, or reader is motivated towards, or reader is convinced for writer's point of view. So we also discussed some of the examples that how you can write down one good argumentative essay. For example, he or she should use public transportation instead of driving. So this kind of an argumentative essay will appeal to the reader that why they should use public transportation instead of driving their own cars. Then we also shared another example that cats are better than dogs. So whosoever is going to write on this topic is going to make sure that how he or she is going to persuade the reader towards the major topic of his essay. In persuasive or argumentative writing, we try to convince others to agree with our facts, share our values, accept our argument and conclusions, and adopt our way of thinking. So this is how you can write down one good argumentative essay. Then the next essay type that we discussed was the evaluation essay. Evaluation essays are just like the reviews. Now see, you try to evaluate something. In other words, it also becomes, or it also stands as a review. They judge whether something is good or bad, better or worse than other similar things. So they try to judge between two different things, or try to review two different things simultaneously. We are familiar with this sort of writing in books or movie reviews. Evaluation papers can be serious or funny. So evaluation, once you are doing the evaluation of something, you are trying to judge, make your judgment about something, that either it's good or bad, or it's better or worse, or you are in other words trying to give your review of that how that thing was. Now talking about the evaluation essay, that how to write one, people make judgments all the time about everything that surrounds them. This is what we discussed in our evaluation essay lecture. Each day we face different facts and scenes, and to act adequately we need to develop our assessment of them. So sometimes if we see something, we say it's good, it's bad. Now why, what makes us say that? This is our evaluation of things, this is our judgment of things, because somewhat in our lives we have experienced that this thing is not good for us, or this thing has got bad results, or this thing can be harmful. So this is how you make your evaluations, and this is how you make your judgments. Same goes with the topics of evaluation essays, that how you are supposed to bring, or how you are supposed to deliver your point of view for the evaluation essay. This type of critical writing gives fair and sound supportive evidence, so that the reader can form their opinion about the subject. So these kind of evaluation essays have got those topics which have got this margin of judgmenting them, and to give your personal opinion that whether they are good or bad. The next essay type that we discussed was cause and effect essay. The cause usually discusses the reason why something happened, and effect basically discusses that what happens afterwards. Like for example, what happens, how a volcano erupts and what happens afterwards is one good example of cause and effect essay. So cause and effect essay basically explains how specific conditions or events translate into certain effects, and how one thing lead to another. In other words, how every action has a reaction, and how one thing leads to the other. So how one or multiple conditions become the cause of several consequences, as you can see the whole graph, that how you are supposed to move on, and while you are choosing to write down one cause and effect essay. The next essay type that we discussed was analysis essay. Analysis essay requires you to break the subject down into the component parts. Now you break down the subject into different component parts. Examining the different elements of a piece of literature is not an end in itself, but rather a process to help you better appreciate and understand the work of literature as a whole. So once you are trying to analyze something, you are going to see that thing as a whole. Now that whole has got different different aspects which you are actually commenting on. Now these aspects will be elaborated differently, separately in different paragraphs with the help of facts, with the help of evidences, and then you are going to comment on the thing as a whole, and then you are going to give your analysis on the whole thing. For example, analysis of a point might deal with the different types of images in the point, or with the relationship between the form and content. If you were to analyze a play, you might analyze the relationship between the subplot and the plot. You might analyze the character flaw of the tragic hero by tracing how it is revealed through the acts of the play. So you are to support anything, any of the argument of analysis through supporting material, through the facts and through evidences. Now the purpose of writing analysis essay is the literary analysis basically is to carefully examine, and sometimes it evaluates a work of literature or aspect of the work of literature. So there is one major category that is to be analyzed, and then there are different subcategories that are to be analyzed within one essay. So you try to see that how you are going to analyze or examine something to find out your answers. The next essay type that we discussed was the personal essay. Personal essay is also one of the most popular forms of the creative non-fiction. A personal essay can be based on the personal experience that results in lesson that you have learned. So a personal essay has something to do with writing down, just like the narrative essay. Personal essay is somewhat related to your personal experiences, but the only difference between the narrative essay and the personal essay is that personal essay helps you point it out for other people that whatsoever incident, whatsoever story you are going to share with the audience that is related to your personal life has got any meaning for the readers. So if you are writing down any story that has got any ending, try to make sure that there is a moral for the story as well. A personal essay can also be personal opinion about a topic or issue that is important to you. Now that can also be your opinion about a particular topic. This basically defines the personal essay. So this is one way of writing one good personal essay for your audiences. The next essay type that we discussed was reflective essay. Reflecting something basically has something to do with the expression, your innermost thoughts that you are going to express in front of your reader. So a reflective essay has something to do with that you need to express your thoughts and emotion about certain events or phenomena, whatever you choose to write down your reflective essay on. Writing the type of essay is a good training to sharpen your critical thinking skills as well as your ability to develop and express opinions on a particular topic. So it helps to sharpen your critical thinking skills as it helps you express your thoughts and emotions about a particular topic. The next essay type that we discussed was expository essay. Now expository essay is that genre of essay which requires students to investigate, which asks students to expose some idea, anything in front of the audiences or in front of the readers. Now it can investigate an idea, it can evaluate any evidence, it can expound on any idea, and it can set forth any argument concerning that idea is clear and in a very clear and concise manner. So whatever the expository essay tries to investigate has something to do with making it your personal point of view, or your that is based on the evidences and the facts that you are using to promote that very cause. Now this can be accomplished through picking up the different types of essays that we have discussed. Maybe you can define that, maybe you can exemplify that, maybe you can do the comparison and contrast of something, or maybe you can do the analysis by using the cause and effect techniques. So the other essay techniques can be used to write down or to investigate about any idea or any topic. Another essay type that we discussed was literature essay, which basically deals with analyzing or writing down about any piece of novel, any piece of literature, let's say any piece of literary text like novel, short story or article. Most commonly it presupposes some kind of the analysis. So either you try to analyze any novel, you try to analyze any short story, or you try to analyze any article, analyzing in a way that you try to judge between the good and the bad aspects that what were used in the that very thing. Then once we were done with all the essay types that were our target of attention, and how we wanted to write about different topics during the course of our essay writing skills, I also try to make sure that you learn that how to attempt one essay writing paper, because sometimes the students are so nervous in the exam that even if they know about how to attempt, what to write in the essay, they usually confuse it with what to write in the essay, because sometimes they are so much panicked and they are so much freaked out with the time limit or the time span that is given to them for writing down one essay. So I shared with you that how you are supposed to manage your time, how are you supposed to take down this essay writing paper, how you can work down on writing down an outline for your essay, how you can write down your thoughts which are coming in your mind while you are attempting any other question on the rough sheet of paper, how the words or the collection of words or the phrases which you find are relevant to the topic of the essay, you can write them down on the rough sheet. Now once you have made your outline, you have the proper sketch, and the best idea for writing or for attempting the essay exam is to pick up or to start writing on essay at the final stage, or let it be the last question of your question paper, because even if you divide your time for writing down different questions and allotting them different time for or like let's say 25 minutes 20 minutes each, sometimes you give a lot of time to your essay writing in the exam that you don't find time to write down other questions answers. So try to make sure that this essay during your exam is the last question in your for to be solved, and sometimes also see that how while solving other questions and keep thinking of the essay writing essay to be solved by the end of the question paper, you can get a lot of ideas collected on your rough sheet in your outline, and then you can prepare to write on one good exam essay, or you are able to write down about the essays in your exams. Then once we were done with it, what kind of the essays, the kinds of the essays that we have done so far in our whole semester, we also discussed the presentation skills techniques that can be helpful and that can be beneficial for you once you want to become a good presenter. Our course was basically to make you good essay writers and then the best presenters. So I try to make sure that I share every information that I have with you, so that you can learn that how to write one good essay and how to produce and how to present on the stage with the help of the good examples in front of your audiences. So while we were discussing that what are the presentation skills, I gave you the thorough introduction that all of the speakers, they are not born trained, they are not born, everyone is not. While I was giving you the introduction of the presentation skills, I told you clearly that all people are not born trained presenter. This presentation is a skill that you learn with the passage of time. So I shared with you that how you are supposed to plan your presentation, how what is the presentation sequence, like there is one introduction to your presentation where you give your thesis statement, then there is a middle in which you elaborate your point of view through different examples, and then there is a conclusion. Then I also discussed with you some of the presentation techniques. Then I also discussed with you that how to create the visual aids for your presentation, and I also discussed that how presentation is a three-stage process where you are supposed to plan, then create, and then deliver in front of the audiences. I gave you tips for good presentation skills that to make one good presentation that your audience will love. First of all, we discussed that how to deliver your presentation, how to work on your presentation content, how to work on your presentation design, handling question answers, and finally the proper use of humor in your presentation, while we were talking about some tips of your presentation. Now, talking about the presentation skills, we also discussed the do's and don'ts that you are supposed to do and you are not supposed to do while making down and creating one good presentation. You were supposed to be brief while making one good presentation by there should not be more than 8 bullets per slide, or 8 points, or 8 let's say 8 bullets per slide and 8 words per slide as well. So this is what you were supposed to keep in mind. Use appropriate fonts. The big enough for your sub headings should be 24 points minimum and 28 points maximum, and they should be clear sans serif. If possible, test your slides on the display, that how do they look to the last seat of the room. Run the slideshow and see if you can read your slides from the last row of the room where you will be presenting. And then use of the appropriate colors, for which I have also shown you some of the examples, that if you are going to use the tangent colors and if you are going to use so much bright colors in the background, and your text will become dull and boring. So if you are using the lighter background, try to use the darker text, and if you are using the darker background, try to use the lighter text on them. Not too bright, high contrast, consistent. Remember that what looks good on your monitor does not necessarily look on the big screen. So it depends on if the rooms are darker where you are supposed to present, if the rooms are brighter if you are supposed to present. Now create contrast using the font size and color. So this is how you can also make your these are some things that you are supposed to do while making your presentations. Now there are some don'ts that you are supposed to avoid while making your presentation, while delivering your presentation. Put everything you present on the slide is a very wrong idea that you should not do if you want to deliver your presentation in a good way. Remember that slides are just a visual aid. If you overload them, the audience will end up trying to read the slides and not paying attention to you. So regarding your presentation techniques, regarding your presentation skills, I discussed that how putting in a lot of text, like you can see on the slide, if there is a lot of text on the slide, you will forget about listening to your speaker, and the audiences will focus on reading reading from the slides directly, and they will wonder why did you not simply email them those slides instead of calling them in and wasting their a lot of time. Then use of colors, fonts on every single slide. If you are making use of a lot of colors on one single slide and there is a lot of font variation on one slide, that is also going to be problematic for your audiences to understand. Use bright background colors that will strain your audience's eyes. So if these visually distracting images are being used in the background, if your background is so bright that somewhat distracts the attention of your audiences and they shun them from reading the text on the slide, this is also one another very bad technique. Using too many animations effects sometimes ruin the purpose of your presentation, because animations keep coming and going, so sometimes you forget that what I had to talk next and what I had to talk about my presentation. They are very distracting for the audiences and make you look like a show off. Use animation only to make a point and not to make your presentation more interesting. Instead of that, try to focus on your content so that your content can be elaborated in such a way that your presentation looks better. We also discussed the presentation sequence, the 3-stage process starting from this creation. That is your first point that is supposed to be kept in mind while creating your presentation. You should understand that how you are supposed to pick up topic, how you are supposed to gather material, how you are supposed to pick up the references, and then how you are supposed to put them on the slides. While creating, also make sure that you prepare yourself mentally that you are supposed to deliver this presentation yourself. Then preparing yourself and then preparing your presentation slides, both of them, and last but not the least, you are to present in front of the audiences. In other words, you are supposed to deliver your point of view strongly in front of the audience so that they are convinced by and they are moved by and they are motivated by what you have to tell them. Now, your non-verbal communication is also very important thing that we have discussed during the course of time. We have thoroughly discussed that how your non-verbal communication can become one problem, or why people don't like your presentation because your non-verbal communication was bad. So we discussed that how you can make your first impressions by greeting and meeting people, because people like listening to those people whom they are familiar with and who have got good impressions on them. So try to establish this impression in front of them that you are enthusiastic about your presentation. Try to welcome them into your room of where you are supposed to present. Be the host of them and let them be the guests. This is how they will feel important. Then how to establish the eye contact with your audiences. So how you can look into the eyes without staring at them and without looking on the walls here and there and stuff like that. You can also make use of your smile, because people like listening to those people who look smiling to them and who look good to them. So a smile adds and enhances your face value. So try to smile, not a big smile, but your smiling face, what I'm talking about. Then your gestures, whatever gestures or whatever your body movements are telling, your hand movements are telling, your body postures and your orientation, the way you are standing, if you are standing like a hunchback, or your palms outside, if your palms are inside, people will feel that you are not confident about your topic. But if your palms are outside and you are standing straight and tall and bold, people will feel that you are confident about your topic, and you are kind of warm and welcoming for them to see that how they can be involved in the presentation. So this is what we are done. Proximity, your nearness with your participants as you move on in the room while presenting about your topic. Maybe you can move at the back, totally at the back, and then you can talk about your slides. Your voice, you should be audible for everyone. You should be loud enough that people can hear you. Your body language should be used as a tool. So your body language should be friendly. It should not convey this thought that you are reluctant in talking to the people. It should be open and warm. So you should be welcoming for everyone. You should be sincere with your topic as well as your audiences, and reading the audiences is also another good tip, that you can read their eyes. If people are nodding at you, if people are looking outside the window, if people are continuously looking at the slide, then there is something wrong with your slide, so you need to work on them. For further details, if you are forgetting something, you can refer back to the lecture of non-verbal communication that we have discussed. Then regarding your verbal communication, we discussed the tips to improve your verbal communication skills thoroughly. We also discussed the 7 C's of communication, that is completeness, where you are supposed to convey your message completely by making use of 5 W's and 1 H. Then talking about the conciseness, that is 5 W's and 1 H. Then the conciseness, that has something to do or make your sentences concise, crisp down, short, terse and brief. Consideration, that how you can make use of this you approach by while considering your audiences and making them the attention of your presentation. The clarity, that how you can make your sentences clear. I also shared with you some of the examples that how you can overcome them. Then how you can make your slides and how you can make your content concrete while picking or while adding in them a lot of facts and figures and a lot of evidences. Courtesy, you should be courteous while because you are humble presenter, you are not loud and bold. The correctness of the spelling, grammar and punctuation should be checked while you are verbally communicating with them. So for that you are supposed to practice your presentation, because you don't want to make any mistake that is going to embarrass you in front of your audiences. Then how we also looked for that what is the effective verbal communication and how you can work on that. We also thoroughly discussed that about the visual aids, that how what are the visual aids and why these visual aids are very important for your presentations. We also discussed the 10 tips for using the visual aids, and we also discussed the purpose of visual aids, that how these visual aids, they enhance and they add up to your presentation, and how they can help you become one good presenter. Then there are some contingency plans that you are supposed to keep in mind while making use of these visual aids, to make sure, to give you just one example, as you can if so that you can quickly recap that how we discussed that. I told you that if you have made these visual aids, or if you want to make use of these visual aids like PowerPoint slides, try to make sure that the room in which you are presenting, your medium of PowerPoint office should match with their medium. There should not be any anything that is mismatching between two of the versions. While using Apple, Mac and iPhones, try to make sure that they are linked with the system that is there. So try to get familiar with the system out there where you are supposed to present. Then we also discussed that how you can overcome nervousness when doing your power presentation in front of the audiences. We also saw, for that we thoroughly discussed the 9 P's, which focus on prior proper presentation prevents poor performance of the person putting on the presentation. So this is how we discussed that how these 9 P's can be kept in mind to avoid any nervousness in your presentation. Now once we discussed that how you can overcome your nervousness, we thoroughly discussed that how you can change your thinking, that people are looking at you. Remember, the presentation is not about you, it's about the subject or the topic that you are presenting. So relax, you must start slowly. Forgive yourself for the mistakes that you are making, because if you are making any mistakes other than you are going to tell audiences that this is what I have made the mistake and I'm so sorry for that, don't try to apologize. Forgive yourself for that and move on, because until and unless you will bring the attention of your audiences towards your mistakes, they are not going to notice. Try to look at your audiences, try to prepare well, for your presentation, try to know your content, try to get familiar with your slides, try to get familiar with the audiences and enjoy your presentation. So that was all that we have done in our essay writing and presentation skills course. I hope that you have enjoyed learning about how to write down good essays and how to give good presentations in front of your when it's about your educational scenario. And definitely once you will be moving into your practical life, you will also see that how these things were so much beneficial for your future life as well. So I hope that you have enjoyed being with me listening to essay writing and presentation skills course. I wish you good luck for writing good essays and making good presentations and then presenting them in front of the bigger and the huge number of audiences. With that, I am Anila Noshin signing off from our lecture number 32. That was our last lecture of the essay writing and presentation skills course. I wish you a very good luck in your life and your endeavors to come. Take very good care of yourself, and Allah Hafiz.